Okay, this week's question is about time blindness and how to deal with it. For those of you that don't know, time blindness is basically, well, it's kind of a catch-all term for a bunch of things around not realizing how much time has passed while you're doing something, or not knowing how long things will take. There's also clinical definitions for this, but that's not what we're really talking about. I'm sort of talking about it in the sense of how people who are trying to get work done talk about time blindness. And so I'm going to walk you through a number of different little techniques I use to help with my general time awareness. So let's start with, at a really granular level for each of my tasks, I put a planned time on all of my tasks. That just helps me think through while I'm planning my day how long this might take, and then I can make sure that my day in total isn't way too much work. And then also, when I'm working on the task, I run a timer. I'm actually running this timer right now, and I can see my progress towards that. And so if I get to 45 minutes, or maybe if this runs over to an hour, then I might ask myself, like, okay, like, do I need to set aside time to work on this tomorrow, etc., and have kind of a discussion about whether I should actually just keep going and change my entire plan for the day, or whether it's okay to proceed. And then the other thing about running the timer, and that takes me to my next thing, is I track the time on all my tasks while I'm actually doing them. And so over time, that's really improved my intuition for planning my day. And I've gone from being a person who consistently plans too much each day to I now plan slightly too little. But that's actually a good thing, because I end the day and I'm like, okay, I could do a little more, or I could be not totally exhausted and just stop here. So keeping track of how long different tasks actually take is a really good way to improve your general time awareness for different tasks. And it's especially valuable if you have tasks that you do on a week-in or day in and day out basis. Okay, so that's a couple of techniques. The other thing, when I plan my day, I've talked about this in the past, but I like to put my more predictable and routine tasks at the top of the day. I'm actually halfway through my day here. It's now like 2:30 p.m. But I started my day by going through all my inboxes, doing a bunch of random administrative work. And the reason I like to do that is because those tasks are typically predictable, and they're not going to take 3 times as long as I have scheduled for them. They might take several more minutes or something like that. But they're pretty well bounded, and as a result, my day doesn't just like bleed into like 4 hours later. Whereas if I do something like put a coding task or a software development task at the start of the day, something I thought was going to take me half an hour could take 6 hours, and then all of those little routine bits of work that I needed to do, like answer emails, administrative things like payroll, they just like, there's no time left in the day for that, and that for me is a very stressful outcome. So I like to get the predictable, like, these are the things I need to do to keep the business running kind of work done, and just get it out of the way, and then I can dive in with whatever time I have remaining each day to actually do like kind of the deeper, more substantial work that's harder to predict. And then just 2 other little techniques that I have. One is, you can see this little break here from, I don't know, 11:45 to 1. That's when I eat lunch. I find that what I do is I kind of try to put my lunch break in between some of my more boring administrative, predictable work and my more deep work. So I ate lunch right before I started doing some of this content prep. And that for me is like a good transition from just kind of that routine administrative stuff, keeping the business running, to like the stuff where I'm like, okay, like now I have to actually like really think and focus and not be on autopilot. And that's just like a nice reset for me. And then the last thing I do is I have a time each day that I set for ending my day. And having that constraint at the end of the day that says, I need to be done working by this time just helps me like stay on track. It makes me feel like each minute of the day is a bit more precious, so I'm less likely to get pulled into random things that I see on the internet or see in Slack, and I try and just stay focused on my list of priorities for the day. So anyway, that's a handful of little techniques that I use inside of Sansama. You could do it in, any daily planning tool that you're using, or calendar tool. And finally, the one thing that I didn't mention that I use from time to time is I use an app called Awareness, which lets me, I'll show you how it works. It lets me pick how often I want to get a bell. And this is particularly helpful when I'm really deep in something, like when I'm coding for 4 hours. I'll put an interval time of like 20 or 30 minutes, and every time I hear the bell ring, I'll just remember to take a breath. And for me, that's like a good reminder to just like back out of the code and be like, okay, like maybe I need to go to the bathroom, like maybe I should drink some water. Otherwise, I can lose track of time and just go get really deep. So just like this little reminder to be like, all right, welcome back to reality is helpful for me. All right, so those are some tips for being more aware of your time. Let me know which ones work for you, which ones don't, or if you have any techniques that you want to share.